So the question I've been asking myself is, who is this camera for? What's up, everyone? My name is Pete. I'm a portrait photographer based in New York, and today we're talking about the Fujifilm GFX100RF, the latest and greatest camera from Fujifilm. And if you don't know about this camera yet, it is a fixed lens rangefinder style medium format camera with 102 megapixels. People have asked me, Pete, what do you think about this? I've gotten a lot of questions, and so I figured let me do a quick video on it and give you my initial thoughts. There's a couple of things about this camera that make it probably not right for me. But it may be perfect for what you're looking for. But I'm a portrait photographer, and there's a couple of things that I look for in my cameras and in my lenses. And number one, I do like shooting sort of wide for portraits. Like I'll shoot 35 millimeter, 40 millimeter, 50 millimeter, and get close to the subject. I like to do that. However, this lens on the 100RF is a 28 millimeter lens. It's a 35 millimeter on the camera, but it's a 28 millimeter equivalent for full frame standard talking. And that's just too wide for me for a portrait. And also the other big thing that makes it not really the camera for me is that it has an f4 lens, which is quite a bit slower than I prefer in my portrait work. There is a lot to love about this camera, and there's a lot of reasons why people are already picking them up like crazy. And first of all, you have just a god-awful huge sensor in this camera. And for those of you who haven't used any GFX cameras before, I can tell you the images are just absolutely incredible. I mean, it's hard to describe without actually seeing them. And it's so much more than just, oh wow, I can zoom in like crazy. And that's actually a big part of it. You can zoom in like crazy with that with the 100 megapixel sensor, and you're still going to get a ton of detail. However, for me personally, it's more about the incredible dynamic range you have, and you can pull and push those shadows and highlights in and out to a degree that you cannot do with other cameras with a smaller sensor, and everything still looks beautiful. And this is why that sensor is so special. So for me, that's kind of the beauty of this. And obviously, for those of you who are not worried about changing lenses, and clearly that's who this is marketed to because it's a fixed lens, having the ability to take a small, compact, light, medium format camera everywhere with you, basically everywhere you go if you want to, is quite the feat. And I feel like Fuji has accomplished something pretty awesome here. And I think that for those of you who are shooting a lot of different kinds of things, if you're looking for something that's going to give you incredible images and kind of cover pretty much anything you throw at it within reason with the range, I should say the focal length, this is going to do it for you. Let's talk about a couple of things that are not great about it. There's no IBIS, which I think is important if you're doing a lot of low light photography, especially because it's an f4 lens. So that might be one of the larger detriments or maybe negatives about the camera, is that you have an f4 lens. So it's already, like for me personally as well, I like to shoot wide open. I like shallow apertures. I'll shoot at 1.2 all day long for my portraits. So that's the other reason why I don't think it's ideal for what I'm doing. But the f4 is a little bit slow when you're shooting in low light or if it's dusk or anything like that without IBIS. So I think that is probably the other sort of downside, or if you want to strike something against the camera, that's probably the place where you're going to have to just be a little bit more thoughtful about how you shoot. Now, for me personally, again, like I feel like IBIS is a little bit overrated with people, and having grown up in the film days and the early days of digital, like we didn't have any of that stuff and we made do. So that's not something that would be a deal breaker for me personally. It's more the slower lens and the focal length of the lens for what I do specifically. Okay, what else? I mean, the fixed lens is neither a pro nor a con. So I would just say the fixed lens is something that you, as the person who's potentially buying this camera, needs to understand, like, are you going to be okay with just this one lens on the camera? Now, the thing is this, that's really like a plus about a fixed lens. It honestly forces you to be more creative. And I tell this story all the time. Those of you who follow my channel, you know I'm a musician, I'm a bass player. And I've had the great fortune of studying with Ron Carter, who is one of the, if not the premier jazz bassist of all time. And so one of the first lessons you take, if you take some lessons with Mr. Carter, or as we call him, the maestro, is he'll force you to play an entire song in the first position on the bass, which is the first position you learn. And on the upright bass, we call it half position, but that's neither here nor there. Without shifting and only using the three basic notes of each chord. So basically, he limits you severely. And your first thoughts as a student are, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to play anything creative or interesting with only using a few notes of each chord and not being able to move because there's so many notes I'm not able to use. However, you figure out really quickly, if you start to think about it, that he's giving you a great gift, which is he's forcing you to find creativity inside of a structure. And that's why I love using prime lenses in general. And I'll go an entire portrait shoot with a 50 millimeter lens, like headshots, portraits, everything. 2-hour shoot, 5 or 6 outfit changes and looks. And I find that it forces you, having one lens, it forces you to be more creative in a way that you're not able to do with a zoom lens. And I always think about like the casual shooter who has a zoom lens and they're standing way off in the distance because, you know, some of it is like we're a little self-conscious, but you have the zoom lens and just, we're going to zoom in and just stand in one spot and take photos. And it's like, you're severely limiting yourself like that. If you have this fixed lens, it does actually it forces you to be more creative. So I think that's a pro in that regard. And let's talk about more pros. Again, 100 megapixels. That's insanity. Those of you who haven't tried it, when you see what that sensor can do, it kind of will blow you away. And it does offer like digital zoom options, so you can do that, and you're still getting a ton of resolution. It has the built-in ND filters, which is awesome if you're outside on a bright day and you need to stop it down. And it does have 2 card slots, which is a big deal for me because I don't like having one card slot, and I don't like having one SD slot and then one micro SD because it's annoying and you have to carry the different media and those things are so small for backup. So just 2 normal SD slots is a big deal for me. And let's get to the design of the camera, because here again is why you want this camera, and I want one too, is because it has those beautiful controls, and they gave you a joystick for the AF on this camera, which I highly appreciate. And they gave you the aspect ratio dial, which I need to use before I make a decision on, but I don't know, for me, probably not the most important use of real estate. However, you have a shutter speed dial, you have an aperture ring on the lens. You're just getting all those beautiful things that we love about Fujifilm, those of us who use Fujifilm. And it has a leaf shutter, right? So that means you can basically shoot flash at pretty much any shutter speed. And so there's a lot of versatility there too. So who is it for? I think it's for those of you who have been using, say, an X100 series camera, but you want to like seriously up the quality of the images you're getting. You're going to love this camera. Those of you who are more interested in a camera you can take everywhere, that kind of does a great job with everything, and that you don't have to worry about purchasing extra lenses for, you're going to love this camera. Or anyone really who is just looking for something to bring their photos to the next level, but doesn't want to invest in an entire, like an entire system, you're going to love it too. And so that was the other thing that I considered when I heard that this camera was coming out. If it was a little faster lens and say maybe like a 35 millimeter equivalent, then it would have been something that I would really had to have to consider stronger as a GFX add-on to what I'm doing in my portrait shoots. I was thinking, oh, this could be something cool to supplement what I'm doing and get some of that awesome GFX goodness when I need it, without having to invest in a whole nother system of lenses. But it didn't really hit the mark exactly for me. For those of you who are considering this camera and the pros that I've discussed sort of fit the bill for you, I would say go for it. I think you're gonna love it. And I mean, again, judging by the sensor, I think you're gonna love it. And for those of you who are sort of on the fence, maybe you're going to be thinking about, like I'm thinking about it, maybe waiting it out just a little bit just to see how things go. And again, when I get one, I will give you a little bit more of an in-depth review. However, for now, you're just going to have to take whatever my thoughts are. And if you don't like my thoughts, then you should not have asked me for them, but I digress. Anyway, thanks again, everyone, for supporting the channel. Do me a favor, if you like this video, if you care about what I'm saying, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. It really does help me to grow the channel and to devote more time to it. And if you're looking for this camera, I will link the camera below. If this video convinced you to buy it, then I would appreciate if you use my link. It doesn't make you pay anymore, but it does help me a little bit. And if you buy from B&H, that would be the best way because they're a great sponsor of us small-time creators. Those of us who don't have 1 million followers, they really do support us and they do a lot of great things for me as a creator and help me out when I need gear that to be loaned to me to do tests and stuff like that. So if you buy it from B&H, that would be great. Use the links below and I will see you in the next one. So here's wishing you an awesome day. Go out and take some great pictures. I'll see you next time. Peace.